Dr. Keith, you ready for Love Your Bones?
Yeah, ready for Love Your Bones.
It's Sunday. It's Love Your Bones.
And it's March.
It's March. I know, right?
Exciting.
And
That means spring is coming.
in some place in America, the flowers are blooming.
I know.
They are blooming in Dallas.
Are they? Yeah,
That's
they
it.
are.
Out.
We
That's
actually have daffodils here blooming, believe it or not. But we have my friend Marie on today. I always bring you beautiful women. What are you gonna do about that? Like every time we have the show, I bring him beautiful women. He doesn't know what to do himself.
all I know. The point is it's nice to have those roses between his little thorn. So I'm good.
In Dallas. I was actually in Miami yesterday where it was 88 degrees and it's just like such a different world, when you live in Maryland and go to Miami, but we do have some flowers blooming. It's actually a beautiful day here, but spring is coming.
I'm waiting for the cherry blossoms.
I know you can see, well, I think stuff is happening, I think it's going to be a little early this year. So
I think so. It's here we have 70s and tulips and some Asian pear trees are blooming around.
wow. Oh, so I'm actually headed to Texas Free on Thursday. I'm speaking at South by Southwest.
Oh,
Yay.
bring back some barbecue.
I know. What'd you say?
I said bring back some barbecue.
You guys can barbecue. I will. So I'll put the flyer in the chat, but we're doing an event, a book signing event on Thursday, and I'm speaking about clinical trials on Friday, and then I'm speaking again at a Fast Company event on Sunday. So, and then one of our besties, Sheila Johnson, is speaking on Monday. So we have a full kind of touch agenda for next weekend at South by Southwest. It'll be really cool. So
That is fabulous.
Here in
So
Texas.
all my Texas friends that are registered, make sure you go to those events to see Ricky.
Yeah, I'll put the flyer in the chat. But today is Love Your Bones, and we're going to talk about bones. And so, I call all of my friends to ask them about what they know about bones and about, DEXA testing and everything. And so the topic that we talked about today is, why are all the old people shrinking? And I think my mother was 5'6", and I think she's like 5'2".
My mom was 5'7.25", and she's probably about 5'5" now.
Wow. My stepdad was 6'4", and he's like 6 feet.
Mhm.
Like, so what's up with that?
Wow, there's a lot of stuff that's up with that. Like
Help us.
Well, you know why, I bring this up. This is very important. And I use this analogy. Okay, work with me on this one. So, Ricky, in your dining room table, you may have a fruit bowl, right?
Yep.
And so if you wanted to make a peach cobbler, what fruit would you use?
Peaches, of course.
But if you had kiwi and strawberries and cherries on there, you wouldn't use that to make a peach cobbler.
No, but I may throw some blueberries in there, but
You may throw some blueberries in there, or some blackberries.
yeah.
But the point is that we have a tendency to generalize. And so generalization is where we're going to have a problem with it, because we make up a smaller population of the total population. So if all of the research is being done on the general population or the total population, we get swept under the rug. Because there are things that are out there. This is not new. If you look at it, the NIH published back in 2018 that there's an issue concerning lactose intolerance in Black people. 80% of the Black people in the United States are lactose intolerant. Why is that important?
Calcium.
Calcium.
Right.
And then if you can't absorb or you don't take in products that have high calcium, milk, primarily people with dairy products, then what happens with the key ingredient needed to build strong bones? Which goes back to how many of your family members who you say are shrinking are taking adequate amounts of calcium.
Yeah, they're not.
I would
They're
say
not.
low. But I think sometimes it's so I could speak just from my own perspective. My mother can't take calcium supplements because she's sensitive to a lot of the preservatives that are used for the casing on vitamins, et cetera, et cetera.
But
So
you,
she's
you,
looking for it in other sources of food.
so
And
can't you get it in,
lactose
can't you get it in,
intolerant.
can't you get it into fortified stuff like orange?
Fortified stuff, yes. And so that's what she does. And she was trained as or she started out being trained as a dietitian and then switched careers. So, she's pretty good about balancing her diet and eating a healthy diet.
Mhm.
But I can say I know I'm lactose intolerant. And so I take a lot of lactate pills so that I can still get in the dairy.
Right. And so the question is your dairy intake the amount that you should have?
Probably not. But I try really hard.
Trying is nice. That's it, but that's no cigar. That's like
We like to eat a lot of
like
ice cream around here. We like
That's
to eat
like
a lot of ice cream in our family.
Ice cream
Ice cream
horseshoes.
is definitely my calcium source.
That's it. I said that's like horseshoes and hand grenades. Yeah, that's close. What's no cigar? Okay, but
I can say personally, so again, going back to my mother, she was in a car accident when she was very young. She was in a car accident when she was like 32 years old.
Right.
And had severe damage, muscular and bone damage.
Right.
And so that has come back and reared its ugly head now that she's in her 80s, going to sort of bone health and strength. You see the shrinkage, the height shrinkage in different things, but a lot of that is attributable to the fact that because of the car accident, she was no longer able to be as physically active as she was beforehand.
So
She
you're
did a lot of like old school physical activity. She had a huge garden. She used to go biking. She used to do a lot of walking and things. But as she's aged, she has been less able to do that. And now her mobility is compromised from this accident 50 years ago.
so it's very interesting you say it. You basically just quickly hit over these topics. We briefly talked about nutrition. Then we moved over into exercise, right? And then the question is, that impacts the quality of life, especially if you have musculoskeletal problems or broken bones. Okay.
Exactly.
And then lifestyle. So I'm going to ask, so your mother sounds like a very active and healthy woman. So she's not smoking and she's not drinking.
She's a former smoker, but quit many years ago, not a drinker.
Right.
Again, used to be very, very active, but that's just declined over the years. And she had swine flu about 5 years ago and found that was really the kicker. That was the kicker that took away mobility almost completely when she got swine flu.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Then she's taken she has a hard time with calcium supplements. What about vitamin D?
Vitamin D is good. She lives in New Mexico, sunny state. You just need to go outside, right?
Well,
and a proper diet. Again, she's very good about having a balanced diet. So she's getting the nutrition through eating very well and cooking for herself and managing what her intake is, because she's still an excellent cook, would prefer to have good food at home than going out and eating things that are bad for you, fast food, none of that. That's not her type.
So they've tested her vitamin D levels.
They have, right? And so everything shows up normal. And she had a bone density.
So let me be careful. Let me ask you a question.
Normal.
Let me ask you a question. What is normal?
Well, normal is on the scales that come on the little page where you get all your test results. So normal is what we know, not based on Black people, but based on whatever the criteria is.
So is she in the middle, or is she in the low end or in the high end?
I think she's probably generally in the middle, would be my guess. I haven't looked at the results in a while.
It'd be interesting to see. We always keep track of that. And Ricky, it's interesting. So your mom is doing an excellent job.
Yeah, but she's on it.
Yep.
She's one of those people that likes living. And so
That's it. She gets it. Yeah.
she likes living, and so she's doing everything she can. So even though she's having big mobility problems now,
Right.
she took herself to physical therapy. She got a cane, she got a walker, so that
Right.
she can still be as mobile as possible, and is very, very focused on that.
Mhm.
But I can say that I'm younger, but I already have degenerative discs in
Mhm.
multiple areas. And so I'm kind of forward thinking that I need to get my own act together, because I'm seeing the problems she's having, and I have different issues, but they are bone issues. And so I need to do a better job on myself.
Did you do you have your vitamin D level?
Mine is low, but I can't take the supplements either, because it gives me migraines.
So you're in Dallas, so that means you need to get a lot of sun, I take it.
So I get a lot of sun. I had a daughter who played golf and rides horses. So there's a lot of outside time, and I like to garden. So I like to be out in my garden to get my sun. Which
Why is your vitamin D low then, you think?
I
need to get
I
more sun.
don't know. I don't know why it's low, but I mean I was really sick a couple of years ago, and it was so low that they were giving me IV treatments while I was in the hospital.
So you can take IV injections though.
IV,
Or-
yes.
Yes. So
Pills,
that
no.
may be another source, because that other component in addition to calcium. So we already mentioned the fact that you're lactose intolerant.
Yes.
And so and I take it that the same thing is the problem. You have to supplement your diet with calcium enriched foods, or
Right.
are you taking your vitamin supplements, 1,000 milligrams a day?
Well, I take a multivitamin and then try to do calcium rich foods, but I'm not as good at it as my mom, because, busy, lazy, don't want to cook.
Well, then you're going to have to, because so they have a focal point. So for women like you and Ricky under 50, then it's 1,000 milligrams a day. And women who are above 50 are 1,200.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm not good. All I can see is what I see. So
And we will both take that.
we'll
It
take
makes
it.
us feel good today.
I'm just letting you know. You better be on at a minimum of 1,000. But these points are so important, is because you see how your mom is doing her very best to be proactive, and then she's living in a climate where she can get out to sun, and she's not indoors as much as you.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're not outdoors, and then people of darker complexion have a very difficult time absorbing adequate amounts of vitamin D. We'll use that term generally.
Really, say that again. So if you have a darker complexion, you don't absorb it from the sun as much?
Yeah, you have to be out in the sun longer. And then even people of European ancestry, or people that are very fair, if they start to use sunscreen, that sunscreen interferes with their ability to absorb the vitamin D.
Right.
So everyone has to be very careful. And so if you look at the amount of time that you're in the sun every single solitary day, it's not like it was back in well, you guys were too young, but back in the 60s, we're walking to school, and we're out in the sun, we're getting a lot, especially in Texas. Because
Yeah, I mean, it was totally different. You were walking to school. My mom grew up on a farm. So, I mean, they were out all the time. They walked to school, they walked back to school. You had farm chores, you had this, that, and the other. I work indoors, but I have a crazy golden doodle dog. And so he needs to be outside, but he wants a friend. So I'm his friend. And every afternoon we sit outside, but I generally sit in the shade
right.
when we're outside,
See,
and because it's hot in Texas.
Yeah.
well, let me ask you a question. Then well, I'm gonna jump. I want to ask this question, Ricky. This is a good one. Do Black women suffer from osteoporosis?
Yeah, we do. Well, yeah, and you know, the numbers show that we do suffer from it, and we have way worse outcomes from it. We get, you know, debilitated and die from it at huge numbers, way higher than white women. I can pull up the stats, but it's something that we don't really recognize. And frankly, we're not getting tested. We're not getting the DEXA scan, and doctors aren't offering it to us. Hello, here we go again. And we're not asking for it because we don't know about it. So, I mean, I think what we're trying to even communicate on our show is, you know, it's something that we have to track for. And we do have calcium deficiencies and vitamin D deficiencies because we're not eating and drinking milk and doing all those things. So,
But see, you see it's interesting. Now I'm going to ask, well, when should women be concerned about osteoporosis? Ms.
I
Brown?
think you should be
Right.
concerned. You should be concerned your whole life, right? You should be working on it when you're young and continue I'm just talking to my daughter. So she's a sophomore in college, and they have weightlifting because she's on an athletic team. She's an equestrian. They have weightlifting. And I was talking to her and I said, oh, ha, ha, ha. I used to do weightlifting too when I was at Dartmouth. And I could do this and I could do that. And we were comparing weights. And I said, and then, you know, I stopped. And I'm doing some PT for a problem with my knee now. And the guy handed me this weight. And I said, oh, that is just not going to work. That's too heavy. And it was not that heavy. And so if we're not consistent, and I would say I'm a poster child for not being consistent about doing that part of the exercise that is helpful to your bone structure, that we're putting ourselves more at risk. And so I was laughing with my daughter and I said, well, I know I have some weights here somewhere. I'm going to go find them and I'm going to need to start using them again because I'm on this podcast today with Ricky.
That's it. But no, let me ask you a question then. So do you have to get weights?
Well, I think you have to do something, and weights are one part of it that is recommended for health and exercise to build up the right resistance.
Well, I mean, you use the right term, resistance. There are things, so a lot of people out, especially in the audience, they don't even have weights. They may have maybe one of those little small 5-pound barbells that you walk with.
Yeah, I've got 2-pound weights somewhere in my house, somewhere.
But something that they can have is even just some basic resistance bands and floor exercises, because you can use your body for resistance. You don't have to. I said I got to go run a mile, but the question is jumping jacks.
I think it comes down to being a modern working person, male or female, who feels overrun by obligations. And, you know, we work during working hours, we work during non-working hours. Then you have to consciously want to exercise. And that's, I think, a big piece of it.
But see, but is exercise a form of therapy, mental therapy? It helps you relax. It helps you boost your endorphins. But you don't have to go to the gym.
But you have to be motivated to do it.
And this
So
is
I
the,
could be very motivated to sit and watch TV as my stress release therapy. Less motivated to go find those 2-pound weights and do something with them.
But you could also walk your dog. Like I mean, I think it's so, we need to do weight bearing exercise, right?
Right.
And
right.
pounds, right? So I walk a lot because it's free. So,
Right.
but I also give myself an incentive. I walk to Starbucks every
Right.
day.
Yeah.
So I have a mission, I have a plan, you know what I mean, that motivates me to walk. But if you're not intentional about it, you're not going to do it because we're just too busy and there's too many excuses. But Dr. Keith, I did find this data. So I kind of misspoke earlier about osteoporosis, but where the issues are is when we get a fracture, which are very prevalent when you get osteoporosis. You're more likely to get a fracture, right? So when measured by fracture type, Black women had significantly different 1-year post-fracture outcomes compared with white women. A 38% higher incidence of mortality. So
Right.
within 1 year after a fracture, a Black woman is 38% more likely to die. 40% more higher rate of debility, meaning you can't take care of yourself, right? And listen to this one, 185% higher rate of destitution.
I think that's all very true. And I think you see that and you see it, you know, if you're in your friend community, you have a lot of older Black women in your community, you can see the results of that. If someone falls, if someone, someone gets injured, you see that they have a less of a likelihood of recovery in many cases. So
And that's what happened to my mom. My mom fell and broke her arm out of her socket. But it really, that was her demise of being able to be independent.
But the one point I wanted to bring up is that that's a general number that you use. What I will also want to bring up is this is what's come up because there have been some surveys done at the national level. And what they're finding is that the bone densities are different depending on your background. So
what does that mean? What does that mean?
So the thickness of your bone, the sturdiness of your bone, and we'll just use those general terms. So if you look at the hip, okay, versus the lumbar region, so that's your lower back. Did you know that Hispanics, males and females, have a lower bone density in their hip? So they're if they have a fracture, if women who are Hispanic have a hip fracture, they're more likely to succumb to everything that you guys talked about. They're not going to get treated. They're not going to get adequate care post-fracture, and then death, and really moving towards that destitute area. But look, and that's why I wanted to bring up this whole concept of generalization, because on the flip side, they said, well, Black folks they big boned, and they have a lower incidence of osteoporosis. I said, but if you look at the lumbar region, is that Black people, males and females, have a lower bone density in the lumbar region. So in the lumbar region, they may have an increased incidence of fractures higher than whites. So if you look at it from the different locations where you can have a fracture, now generally speaking, then it's like they make up the majority of the population. But then if you think about it, America, and bear with me, these are just round numbers, but just so for bear with me. If you look at the majority of Black people live in like 35, 36 states in the United States, but they average throughout the whole state when you start all 50 states. because the majority of white folks live, or people of European ancestry live all 50 states. So you have to be careful about the data, how you interpret the data. And then you have to look specifically at areas that are important. Generally speaking, white females have greater osteoporosis, or have small body frames, and have greater incidence of osteoporosis. But then if you look at it at the location, hip, spine, Latinos, Hispanic ancestry have a lower bone density. So their chances of having hip fractures are greater. Black folks, because of the low bone density in the lumbar area, your lower back area, your chances of having increasing fracture and suffering from osteoporosis is greater too. So
And I
those,
would think you'd also have to look geographically. So if you look, I would think you'd also want to look at that both by ethnicity and geography. So if you're living in New York or Chicago or somewhere where people are doing a lot of walking, I would assume you would find a difference versus you look at Dallas where we like our cars and we do a lot of driving.
well, it's interesting that
You would find some differences there as well. Is that a possibility?
well, the whole issue is that this data is coming from the federal government.
Mm.
And so what they found significant findings as it relates to the location of bone density. Now, geographically, yeah, I mean, people who are going to be doing a lot of walking a lot, or you may not say that after COVID, because that's 3 years, everybody was indoors.
Mhm.
So they weren't on the train, they weren't doing a lot of walking.
Right. That's
And
true,
so-
right? Because we're all working from home, sitting
Right.
a lot.
But
Very
you
happy
you
sitting in
may
my office all day long. Not, I don't have to drive to my office to do anything anymore. I can do it all right here.
now there may be the issue concerning geographically when we start talking about vitamin D levels in areas of the country that the majority of people are vitamin D deficient compared to in the South, where in the South, more people have adequate normal levels of vitamin D. You're going to see that does exist. And that's directly related to geographical location also.
So
Wow.
if we as African Americans, if we have lower bone density in our spines, that would make me feel like we are also prone to more spinal
Compression.
stenosis and yes,
Shrinking.
like I have degenerative discs and I've got them cervical and lumbar. So, is that
Could
because of bone density? Is that because of I don't know what? Is that, and then it kind of puts a real damper on my golf game because those are things that are not really good if you like to play golf.
Right.
Right?
Well, I mean,
Any sport.
Any sport, but but particularly a sport, as my husband says, your favorite sport is one that is like the worst for your condition because you're putting a lot of torque on your spine and you have degenerative discs, and that's like just a bad combination.
But
Well,
go ahead.
I was
Ricky.
gonna ask, so first of all, go back for a minute. So how many Black people do we know that have a bad back, a bad hip, or a bad knee, right? So
A
I think
lot.
that's right. Everybody we know, right? Everybody's getting knee replacements and hip replacements, and they're in their 50s, right? 50s and 60s, young. So is that possibly from osteoporosis that we're not being checked for? Like, is there a way to prevent that if you get a DEXA scan and you can prevent that stuff from happening?
I mean, I don't think anybody has to wait to get the DEXA scan. I do think that you need to start the discussion with your doctor earlier on. And I think Black women need to start the discussion. It's because what you'll see out there is they'll wait until you're 65, or when did you have start menopausal changes? When did those take place? Because we know when you're 30, that's when your bone density starts to decline.
Well,
So,
so you should really be tracking it. I mean, they're saying, I guess the recommendation is to get it around menopause, but really it should be earlier with Black people like everything else, because
mhm.
we're getting like, same thing with mammograms and everything needs to be done.
Yeah.
Black
But
people.
but even if there's a resistance or pushback about coverage, nutrition, we just had a good discussion. I just
Mhm.
said calcium and vitamin D, you have to be supplemented.
Mhm.
Okay, that's one. So, and women under 50, like you guys, 1,000 milligrams, regular exercise. That's extremely important. And it could be simple as just doing jumping jacks or walking up and down the steps if you live in an apartment complex, weight bearing exercise. Some people may climb, rock climbing, and we still have to work on our love your bones line dance, but Ricky, we'll work on that one. And then resistance exercises. So I mean, and it's not the same as weightlifting, but having those resistant bands and standing up and doing squats or standing up with the resistance band, that's a form of exercise that is easy to have access to. And guess what happens? Smoking, drinking, how much alcohol are
Mhm.
people consuming? People are still smoking, right?
That boggles my mind.
And so if we're focusing before the doctor even says, okay, you need to have a DEXA scan, before that, we need to know there's nutrition, there's regular exercise, and a healthy lifestyle are going to be important things.
Yeah.
Before
So I think we need more messaging, like that messaging needs to be getting out to people,
Yeah.
younger people I think it needs to, I think the sort of the target age is that time in your life when you get really, really busy. If you're building your career and if you have a family, you're building your family, because that's the point of time when you stop doing enough for yourself.
Right.
Because you're so focused on everything
Mother.
externally.
Or-
and so you may lose that intentionality about self-care because you got all these other demands on your time that's for everyone around you and not for you.
Right. But the thing about it is self-care becomes family care. So everything that we talked about here is important for your family, for your kids. So for younger women, and there's a whole issue about eating healthy.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
let's talk about self-care, okay? Because that's sort of a buzzword now. Everybody I know said, I'm going to do better self-care for my New Year's resolution. Okay.
Okay.
So what does that mean? Does that mean going to a spa every month, or does that mean taking vitamins? Or like, if you start thinking about it, it's like, so we're actually trying to, our new Love My Girls campaign is about teaching Black women to check their breasts as a part of self-care.
Mhm.
So when you get your nails done, check your breasts. When you put it into your routine of self-care. So I think we have to redefine what self-care is and make it maybe as much about sort of your mental wellness as it is about health.
And I
we'll
think
think
that
about-
I think most people, or at least I'll say, like if I were to go to my circle of girlfriends and say, okay, what does self-care mean to you? Most of them would say things that are not what we're talking about. I think it would be like, oh, I'm going to go to the spa. Oh, I'm going to get a manicure. Oh, I'm going to, take the night off and go drink wine with my friends. I don't think self-care would say, oh, I'm going to go lift weights, or I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going to do jumping jacks, or I'm going to walk my dog. I don't think that the concept as it's been marketed
Right.
means any of the things that we're talking about. I think it's
We have to redefine it. We have to redefine it. We have to redefine it because we're going to be dead trying to get to the spa.
So can I ask you a question? So, ladies, what does quality of life mean to you?
Oh, quality of life to me means that I feel good. I'm with my family and I'm happy.
Mhm.
That's quality of life.
See, I think it also means like, I don't want to be in a wheelchair like my mom. It means that I can go paddleboarding It means that I can run with my grandchildren. Like one of my girlfriends, she actually ended up getting knee surgery because she realized she couldn't chase her 2-year-old granddaughter
Mhm.
and she couldn't keep up with her. Well, she couldn't babysit for her because she couldn't walk, right?
Yeah.
So I think it also means like all these physical things. I don't want to be restricted physically. I want to be able to walk and boat and do all the things I like to do, go on my paddle board and hang out with my grandkids and play tag, for as long as I can. I don't want to be restricted physically.
Okay. You don't want to be, okay. So those are good responses. Then the question is, what does bone health have to do with quality of life?
Everything.
I think everything.
Okay.
Everything.
I mean, and I would say also you have to take into account, so, I'm a person that has chronic pain.
Mhm.
So when I also say quality of life means that I'm having a day where I don't have a lot of pain. And I think that that is something else, that there's a generalization that Black people experiencing chronic pain do not get the same treatment as others. And so there's a big discrepancy of, you may be told, oh, that's all in your head. Oh, that's not, you have pain, but your pain really isn't that bad. And I think that there are a lot of issues around that and the generalization of how Black people are treated with chronic pain. And that's a big piece of it that also has to be addressed systematically to provide the quality of life. Now, I'm really lucky because I've got great doctors and I've got some people that will listen to me and understand it. But I think that that's not the case on a general basis, and that also impacts your quality of life and what you're able to do.
Well, what's your chronic pain from, Veri? Like, what is the cause of chronic pain? Can that be?
Well, it's the discs. It's the degenerative discs.
Yeah,
So I get
back pain.
nerve pain, neurosis, tingling, okay, here's the real life example. So I have a torn meniscus in my knee. So I'm doing PT on my knee. I
Mhm.
go twice a week, but I have all this neck and back pain. And so I can't really do the PT exercises if I'm in a state of chronic pain that day and my neck and back are killing me. So I show up at PT the other day with my ice pack wrapped around my neck. That's how I showed up to PT. And the therapist looked at me and said, oh, I can see you're having a bad day.
You're a
So
mess.
we're going to have to adjust what our exercises are and what we can do with you, because you've got so much pain everywhere else. Whatever I'm trying to do to help your knee recovery isn't going to work if you're dealing with managing everything else in your body that's bothering you. So I have a good therapist that understands that and adjusted the exercises we did that day, gave me heat therapy at the end of my session. And then I go on my merry way and ice and do the other things that I need to do. But if I had been with a therapist that was not empathetic and was not in tune with my whole situation, then the outcome would have been different.
And had you maybe, and I don't know, your illness, had you been aware of bone health 10 years ago, maybe you wouldn't have the chronic pain that you have. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it's all connected. I think.
Well, I mean, Ricky, you're absolutely right. So your knee pain, your torn meniscus influences your gait, your stance. So
Right.
now your gait isn't appropriate. Now you're leaning to one side to compensate for the pain or discomfort you have on the side that you have the pain.
Right.
And so all these areas have to be corrected.
Right.
And then to a certain extent, how long do you prolong it before you get the procedure?
Well, that's my doctor's already told me. I mean, he's been my ortho doctor for 30 years.
Right.
And, he's already said, we're going to do PT on this knee, but you're on your way to a knee replacement. And I
Right.
said, oh, that's great. You know, that's not great for your marriage to go have knee surgery.
No, well, let me rephrase. Can I rephrase that for you? It might be great for your marriage to have that knee replacement.
Now I'm a bad patient. So
No, so but once you have the replacement, the amount of
Better.
you'll feel better, and then your husband can chase you
yeah.
because that's your physical therapy. Because
that's the therapy.
those little subtle things that you struggle with on a daily basis, you remove that. Now your gait is different.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you have physical therapy, you have your knee replacement, you do have that spine issue that you're going to have to address.
Right.
So can I backtrack a little bit? We are moving into a time where medicine and healthcare is more personalized. Okay, so we're looking at our genetics. We're looking at treatment options that are designed specifically because of the person's genetic makeup.
Right.
We, in the past, in the 20th century, doctors were reactionary. Now doctors are going to be preventive, because now we're in the driver's seat, and now it's our responsibility to share in the decision-making process, to have that discussion.
Be
But I
the
think
CEO
that
of your own health.
assumes you have access to medical care. I think that assumes that you have access to medical care to the type of physician that's going to do that with you.
Well, no, so here's the point. The point is, in the 21st century, that's what they're supposed to do. You can't rely on the patient. Well, the doctor won't do that to me. Well, then you have a choice to get another doctor.
Right, you do.
The doctor
You have to
has,
follow the doctor. Well, yeah, so Marie, if you've gone to this orthopedic doctor for 30 years,
Yep.
has he ever told you to get a DEXA scan?
I've never been told to get a DEXA scan, and I have 3 orthopedic doctors.
and so it'd be very interesting. And even if we go, let me go back.
But I'll ask them next. I will ask
Well,
them.
let me ask you
Monday.
a question. These are specialists.
Right.
Who's your primary care doctor who's supposed to be concerned about this?
Well, he hasn't suggested it either, but you know, that'll be the question for Monday is, hey, how do I get a DEXA scan, and who wants to order it?
Right. Or what's your number? What's your bone mineral density?
Right. Well, yeah, and if the thing is, if your general practitioner doctor is sending you to an orthopedic, where's the disconnect? I mean, so that's where we do have to be the CEOs of our own health, and we do have to ask for the stuff. Like, we have to be so educated as patients, it's ridiculous. We have to do these doctors' jobs, because the fact that you've gone to the same orthopedic for 30 years and you've had issues, but they've done a bone scan on you.
And
I think you have to self-advocate. So I'm a pretty good self-advocate, but then sometimes you kind of, and this is what I tell my husband all the time is, you know, sometimes you get tired of being the self-advocate. And
Being the boss of,
and you just give up. And I will tell him, I don't like any of you. You're all doctors. I don't like any of you. And I don't want to talk to any of you anymore about anything else, because I'm tired of telling my story.
But the question is that there's a new story to tell. And that is your bone health, which they don't talk about. And the fact that Black women do get osteoporosis, which they don't talk about, which they need to understand. Because what happens is that they have a general idea, oh, Black people don't get osteoporosis. That's not even correct.
Right.
And then you have a thin frame, so you may be at a higher incidence of osteoporosis.
Right.
Now we start bringing in your musculoskeletal problems, your lower back problems, that vertebral column that I just told you about. That's a fracture.
Right.
So that's a compression fracture. But it's still Black folks, lower back, and then having that discussion and making sure, because if your vitamin D levels are low, if your calcium levels, if you're not adequate, your calcium level isn't adequate, you're getting the exercise because you play golf and you're mobile, you're walking the dog.
Play with the dog, yeah.
Yeah, but you're not smoking, you're drinking more than one and a half glasses of alcohol a day. So then everything goes back to supplementation. But we do know, since you have medical problems, especially that lower back issue concerning your spine, then you may be osteoporotic. So when they do a bone scan, they may find clear evidence of osteoporosis in your lower back. Your hip
Now,
may,
would that show up? So, okay, tell us more about the DEXA scan. So, because I think that I don't think people know enough about what it is, what it does. Tell us more of, what does that mean? 'Cause
well,
I know I've got like MRIs out my wazoo from, I got a lot of MRIs, but the DEXA scan, what is that going to show that's going to be different, that is going to be helpful versus the x-rays and the MRIs and, all the other treatments that you go through when you see these ortho specialists?
okay.
You have pain, right?
So what people are looking for here is this bone mineral density. So they want to see how thick your bone, the inside your bones are. So you think of it like spaghetti, a bowl of spaghetti. Compare that to spider webs.
Hmm.
You see the bowl of spaghetti is thick and it's dense, and
Oh my
compared to
gosh.
spider webs, it's like loose and fragile looking. So so when you think of normal bone, then you have osteopenia, which is less bone, and
Mhm.
osteoporosis is just it's like honeycomb, very thin, large areas of openings in the bone. So but what the objective of this DEXA scan, which is not painful, and it's not like, you're not going to get you like if you
Right, 5
did a
minutes.
CT scan. I mean, it's at the level of an X-ray.
Hmm.
And then it looks at different areas of your body to see for what the bone density area is. And so what we were talking about is that hip, and we're talking about that lower back. Those are
Right.
common areas where people are of concern, because if you have
Right.
that fracture, then you're out. You think you're out. You having some problems if you just have your knee replaced. Your hip is out. You're going to be, that's some problems. And then if you have a fracture, then you're more likely to have another fracture.
Have another fracture. I was gonna say, all you're doing is overcomplicating the situation. So it's almost like once you have an issue, if you don't do anything about it and maybe just try to, basically, it seems like what they're doing is medicating your symptoms as opposed to solving the problem and even looking for the problem, which I think happens to a lot of people. That
Mhm.
when I have pain, okay, well, let me take a pill for the pain. Well, what's causing that pain?
Yep.
And what's behind that pain? What's the root of that pain? And doctors, that's where doctors fail, I think. When you go back to the doctor for the same thing over and over again, something's wrong with that picture. Like if you,
Right.
right,
Because remember, Ricky, we said reactionary.
reactionary,
Have
right,
a problem, treat the problem. What I'm
right,
saying is here's your DEXA scan. You're looking at the bone density and some things I throw out there. Even it doesn't matter what your bone density is. One fracture, if you have one fracture, then you're 5 times more likely to experience another.
have another one.
And so now you have the lower back pain and that compression fracture.
Right.
See? So, but is there something that you should be taking in addition to your physical therapy and all the other things that help strengthen your bones?
Fix your bones.
I said,
Mhm.
what is because the issue is what is your DEXA scan? What are
Yeah.
your numbers?
Right.
Now
And
I've got to go find out my
You gotta
DEXA
find
scan.
out. Yeah. And Bree, I think you're pretty normal. I think a lot of people have the same thing, but if you think about it, right? So you've been going to this doctor for 30 years, he hasn't fixed you. But that's what we do. We'll go to the doctor, we'll go to the doctor, we'll go to the doctor with the same problem. But if you were, I equate everything to shoes. If you bought some shoes and the heel broke, you would take them back to Nordstrom,
A heartbeat.
right? So, but we don't do that with our bodies. We accept the bad care, and we don't.
No, I
and-
don't, I would disagree. I don't accept the bad care. I'm just a frequent flyer. right? Like I'm a frequent flyer.
Well, what's a
They know me in the office.
what's a frequent
Yeah,
what is a frequent flyer?
A frequent flyer means that I have my ortho guys for different body parts, and they know me, and they see over the years, they have seen me on a very regular basis, and their staff people know me because I've
but
been
they're
in
not
and out.
fixing you. They're not fixing you.
Well, but some of the things that they have said, like for my back, they have said, you are not a surgical candidate. And these are top specialists. So they're people that are very, very high in their field. And so, for the back issue specifically, which is my chronic pain, the thing is they have said, you are not a surgical candidate. So
everybody
exercise, we can send you to PT, we can give you injections, we can do this, you can,
We're not checking your
okay,
bones.
so let me ask you a question. So
We're not
are
checking your bones.
Ricky, when it comes to problems that Black women experience, are they less likely to get the standard of care?
Yeah. They are. I mean, I see that every day. I see that every day in my lane. Okay, you know that we don't get the standard of care. And, I say this all the time, that we live in this world of health inequity. And what I ask our patients to do is challenge their doctor. If this were your mom or your wife or your dad or your uncle or your kid, what would you recommend for them? Is that what you're recommending? Are you giving me the same care, the same consideration, the same tests, the same evaluations that you would give to somebody that you love?
I would say I'm lucky that my doctors are doing that. So I've got great doctors and they're doing that. But I think that I'm lucky that with the physicians I have, that I am getting a good standard of care.
But remember that all doctors aren't perfect, because I'm going to ask you a question. After menopause, how much bone loss occurs?
I think a lot of bone loss occurs because you have all of those physiological changes taking place. I mean,
have they talked to you about it? Did they tell you that almost 2.5% bone loss every year?
No one said that to me in a doctor's visit.
Okay, and then they didn't ask for
a DEXA scan.
Okay, they didn't talk about your bone health. Let me ask you a question. You're on Love Your Bones, learning about your bone health, learning about how a fracture will impact your quality of life. It sure will mess up your golf swing.
Yeah, it definitely will.
And
That's a bad deal.
That's a bad deal.
Okay. With Ellie. You're definitely not getting on a horse with Ellie anytime soon, right?
Yeah. And my riding is already not so great. When I'm riding, my whole purpose is to stay on the horse. That's it.
You and me both, but
I'll just sit in the clubhouse and just wave. Hey, great job. You get up to me. I'm not gonna fall off that horse. I'm too big.
Well, that's what my husband says. He's always like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? This is a bad idea.
I just want to be able to dance all night when I'm 90. Okay. I want to be able to dance all night.
That's what I'm saying. I'm a dancer, see, and I know how to salsa. So I'm supposed to teach Ricky how to salsa.
Okay, that's good.
You forgot I'm from San Antonio, so
we're gonna be dancing all night.
You gotta know how to salsa. Yeah, you're from Miami. You know how to do salsa.
I know they were dancing down there. It was a crazy place, but
I don't mean, we're not pointing the finger at doctors as being as a negative. I'm just saying the doctors aren't perfect. And the point is, they're your consultants. And you made a comment, and I was trying to understand, a frequent flyer. Is a frequent flyer good? Do I interpret it as a good phrase?
You're not getting any points to get free flights, dude.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just a frequent flyer of somebody with chronic pain. You're a frequent flyer, and you're in and you're out.
But the fact that you're a frequent flyer is is you're there managing your health. So to me, how you interact with the clinicians is how you're supposed to. I'm not worried. I'm a freaking flyer. I got these particular problems. I need to know how to better manage. I shouldn't be on Love Your Bones learning about, whether or not I have osteoporosis or whether or not I should be supplemented with therapies.
And also there's things you can do for osteoporosis. We have medications we can take that could be helping your pain or or strengthen your bones to, something, prevent future pain. So
I mean, like Evenity is a drug that not only decreases the breakdown of the bones, but it then works to increase it. So there are therapies that are out there. And again, Black women are not hearing about these therapies.
we don't know about them. So that's how we do
Right.
this. I mean, I think
I think it's great.
very typical, Marie, that there's how many people like you are walking around and maybe don't have the good standard of care that you have, that are in
Right.
pain. They are not able to be frequent flyers. So that's what we want to make sure people know, that you got to ask for this stuff. You got to ask for it, and you just got to start thinking about it as self-care.
No, and I think it's great. And I do think we all should be advocates. And I say this all the time to my friends and my mom, I'm my mom's assistant advocate, is
Mhm.
that you really have to stand up for yourself. And if you're not comfortable with what your physician is telling you, you have to stand up for yourself, or you need to find a different person,
Yeah.
right? And you can
But-
fire your doctor and you
but-
can go find another one.
But I also say that in addition to them standing up for themselves, they can only stand up for themselves only if they have information to stand up with. And this is
Exactly.
This is
Right.
why programs like
Exactly.
this is why programs like this are so important, because when was the last time the ladies got together having fun, improving that quality of life? Anybody talk about bone health?
We're not talking about bone health. We're talking about hot flashes. That's usually what we're talking about.
Right.
So now, but the point is, so that's quality of life. But in those hot flashes, that means that, okay, what percentage of you're having hot flashes? That means there's modifications in estrogen levels. So that affects your bones. So now
Right.
you have osteoporosis and you're at increased risk of fractures. And you may have some problems with lower back pain due to lumbar fractures. All that ties in together.
It all ties together. And
Oh,
you
it's
do want to
great
fall. I mean,
information.
the falling thing is pretty bad. You don't want to fall. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to fall. And my sister's broken both shoulders from falling off a curb.
Oh my goodness.
No, I'm trying to get her on the show, Dr. Keith. I've been working on her. I'm gonna have to go to her house and get her because,
I'm gonna go knock on her door.
yeah, she got a DEXA scan, so. I harass her about cutting her boobs off all the time, so she doesn't want to hear from me about health.
I'll let you guys focus on that discussion. I'm over here, the DEXA scan.
DEXA scan, yeah.
I
It's a
said, when it's one of those discussions, I said, and the vegetables that you need to eat. Well, we didn't even talk about that.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think we need to also, we need to be talking to our young people. So, I have a young athletic daughter. And so now she's going to start hearing about, as you're going forward in life, these are the things that you should also be thinking about. And you're a great athlete now, right? Everything works, nothing hurts. You just go and do, and you're happy-go-lucky. But now she's going to get a nice conversation. I'm going to say, Ricky told me to talk to you.
But see, also, Ricky, and I'm glad I'm glad you brought this up, that you have a young daughter, and we have to get our young daughters
Right.
to start doing breast exams early, because their doctors are talking about it. Because really they're still in college, they're still in that whole framework of visiting their pediatrician, but their pediatrician needs to be discussing with young women about breast exams, because they're making it to college, and the majority of them never heard anything about breast care and breast exams. And then the fact that in college, there are women in college who are at 19, 20, 21, 22 that are developing breast cancer.
Right. No, I mean, I think I think that's an excellent recommendation, and I think that is true. And I think that, we're not, um, having those conversations with them necessarily in all cases. I mean, again, I think if you're a friend of Ricky, you're having those conversations with your daughter.
Oh,
But
and
if you're-
you know,
you may not if you're not aware of it and you haven't heard her story and you don't know, kind of how passionate she is about this and spreading the word. So I think that we can do a great job of including this conversation in other ways that we're speaking to young ladies. And there are a lot of organizations, and we're doing a lot on STEM. We want more African-American women doing STEM, and so we need to start incorporating this, just like we're incorporating those conversations with these young women.
and it's very important because Ricky has her ambassador program. So
Right.
when I said that she was at Prairie View, we had ambassadors at Prairie View and Spelman across the country, and we need more. Because young women need to understand, men from the standpoint of prostate cancer, young men and young ladies from the standpoint of breast cancer. Because
I just put our new website in the comments, loveofmygirls.org. And we do have 2 Dartmouth interns right now. So
I already had a conversation about one of them this morning with Ellie. So.
yeah, get Ellie in there. But
and that ambassador program would be good for LA because of the things that you do preparing for graduation and that job.
Yeah.
What do you do? What lens are you viewing life through, and have you, along with all the activities that you do, have you created something that is impactful in the future?
Yep, I'm putting out my email address in the chat if you're interested in our HBCU internship program. We'll start our next semester soon. So we have 13 right now.
Fabulous.
So thank you, Varee.
Thank you
for having us and talking about your stuff. And we didn't really talk too much about the shrinking, only it's caused by osteoporosis. Hello. And I don't want to shrink.
I don't want to shrink. I'm already 3 inches taller than Ellie. I don't want to be less than that.
I mean, we got to talk some of those therapeutics that are out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah.
Along with your diet and some other things.
Yeah. So eat the right things, eat your green leafy vegetables, take your supplements, make sure
jumping jacks,
vitamin D, and ask for the DEXA scan. Everybody ask for the DEXA scan.
Ask for the DEXA scan.
I don't care how old you are. Ask for the,
and then let them tell you.
Let them tell you can't have it.
Can't have it, but at least then force them to start talking about bone health. It said, especially when you start to have potentially having these high flashes, that means that there's a fluctuation in your hormone levels. And if that's the case, then your bones the density decreases about 2.5% every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great information.
Great. Thank you.
Don't forget those mustard greens too. I know you Texas folks know how to make mustard greens. That's a good source of calcium.
Mustard green. Okay, I'll cook some of those.
When I go down there, I'm waiting for them. I'll wait for some mustard greens.
I gotta get Bert. I'll tell Bert to make them. That is not my specialty, but he makes really good greens. So
okay, well, hey, you can send them, and FedEx does ship.
They do. Ice packs, dry ice. That's all you need.
Right.
You ice pack those bad boys, and I'll have them fresh the next day.
I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And next month we're going to talk about Pilates. We found this awesome Pilates teacher who teaches Pilates for osteoporosis. People with
I love Pilates. So
join us.
I'll be tuned in.
Right.
So that's going to fit right now in our physical fitness component.
Yeah. So we'll be on
regular exercise is very important.
Yep. April 2nd, we will be back on for Love Your Bones. Thank you, Dr. Keith.
All right. All right. It was nice meeting you. Thank you again.
Bye.
Thank you, Amgen. Thank you, Amgen, for all you do for us. Blessings, everyone.
All right,
Bye.
bye.